Welcome back to part 2 of Ricardo's Ghost. I guess I also understood how it felt to lose a child at such a young age. This was just what my parents freaking needed. Right when they finally overcame all odds and learned to live with death of their infant son, life or God or whoever the hell finds some fucked up way to remind my parents of their most stressful and dismaying point of their lives. When I first found out about the news, the principal of my school visited our class and delivered the awful story. The day before this happened, the other students and I caught our teacher, Miss Vainthra, crying and mopping near the hallways. Mopping? I don't know. Out of all of our children, she cared and respected Ricardo the most. He always charmed our teacher in a way that amazed me as a young child. His death really impacted us all. I mostly handled the situation with apathy, and I don't know if it makes me some emotionless monster or not. Children understand a lot despite their age, and I was fully aware of I cannot fucking speak today. And I was fully aware of what happened to Ricardo. All of my classmates were. He died and he was never coming back. This fact stuck to our brains and nothing would be able to take it away. Don't get me wrong, I felt like shit on the inside. I lost my only friend who brought something out of me. I really didn't get along with all the other kids. It's not like they bullied me or anything, that came later, but I just chose to isolate myself from them. What got me the most was witnessing my parents circle around a difficult depression once again. For the next month or so, the environment inside my house consisted of nothing but gloom and hopelessness. Every time I walked inside, I sensed the sadness seeping into my head and emotions. My mom and dad tried encouraging everyone to feel better, and sometimes I actually believed that we were healing from this tragic point in our lives. But at the end, these futile attempts were met with everyone giving up. I felt disgusted with my parents and myself. A year or so after Ricardo's death, I began experiencing these unexplainable paranormal interactions. They began around the time I was 6. Late one night, I think it was Saturday, I was snuggled in bed with the lights off. I was playing my Nintendo Game Boy Advance at the moment. I don't remember what time it was exactly, but I'm more than certain it was past midnight. I made sure to stay quiet since this time my parents were already sleeping. I started to feel tired after an hour or so of playing Pokemon Sapphire. My eyes kept on opening and closing, and I took this as a sign to go to sleep. Right before I could even turn off my device, I heard the faintest of sounds coming from my closet. This aroused me I arose instantly, and whatever sleepiness I felt before vanished. Bewilderment took over that exhaustion. I waited for the noise to come again. After a minute or so in suspense, I didn't realize I was holding my damn breath. I held my Game Boy above my face, screen flashing, its colorful lights on my eyes. I pressed start and saved my file, but I didn't turn off my device. I needed it as a source of light. I aimed the device towards my closet door and waited for anything to happen. A loud bump sounded behind one of the doors. I dropped my Game Boy right on my face. Ouch! I winced and rubbed my nose. A jolt of pain spread all over my face. Play with me. I finally heard it for the first time. I lay paralyzed with apprehension. The sting on my nose suddenly seemed less important. For the first few seconds, I remained confused and a bit unnerved. Then that confusion evolved into frustration for not understanding what just happened. From frustration, I grew distressed and paranoid. Suddenly, the shadows inside my room seemed too dark. The walls appeared too thick. My blankets choked me a little bit too much. The pillows below my face felt as if they were suffocating me. The whole world was going against me. That paranoia fused with the worst of my fears. I went to scream, but my throat locked in on itself. The inside of my mouth grew dry. I thought about jumping out of my bed, but dismissed the idea. Like any normal child, I resorted to my blankets for comfort and safety. I remember burying my body deep inside the sheets and refusing to open my eyes. Nothing else happened after that, however. I stood awake most of my time there, and when I woke up, I suffered from a tremendous headache, but other than that, I remained undamaged and sane. I prevented myself from confronting my parents about this. They were already dealing with enough, and if I just told them about my weird and creepy experience, I would just bring them even more things to worry about. And besides, nothing bad happened to me. That's what mattered most. The next week came, and the same thing happened once more. This time, however, I maintained a bit more of my composure. I still felt my terrified thoughts crawling into my mind, but it wasn't as unbearable as before. I mostly felt speculation. A part of me wanted to say it was a ghost, but being that young, I still knew how ridiculous that sounded. Strange things like that only happened in movies or novels. For the next week and on, I spent most of my time pondering about what I was dealing with. I analyzed everything from the time the apparent ghost decided to sneak into my room, to the movement and sounds it made. I came to several conclusions after 3 months of thinking everything through. The first thing I came up with was that it was indeed some sort of ghost, spirit, whatever you want to call it. The second thing was that it wasn't an it, but a he. It took some time coming to this conclusion, but it was obvious. The voice said it all. It sounded light and ethereal, yes, but it contained a bit of roughness that only boys can pull off. One of the most important factors I put into consideration was that it never once tried to inflict damage upon me. That stopped me from making it a problem. Not only that, but the fact that it slowly made me adapt and accept the presence of this young child. My mind still wrestled with the fear of being stalked, but this was only natural for anyone, especially a young boy. No matter what, I was still talking to the dead. If that doesn't bring chills down your spine, then you're not goddamn human. The more knowledge I gained about the apparition, however, the more questions bombarded my mind. I told myself it would be a horrible idea to take physical notes about my experience. If someone were to take hold of that notebook, read everything through, they would assume I was either a child They would assume I was either a child with an amazing imagination or some kind of enigmatic maniac. And seeing how my reputation in school came to being the quiet, awkward, and slow kid, I don't think people would guess the former. So at the end, I was forced to remember and repeat everything I learned over and over in my head. It became arduous and onerous at first, but this helped form my expansive memory. They came in handy during school, but during that time, school was the last thing I worried about. The night finally came that over 3 years of hearing but ignoring the ghost, I finally responded back. And to my amazement and shock, I ended up finding out it was my best friend Ricardo this whole time. It all made perfect sense. This changed everything. That night, I stayed up until early dawn. It wasn't out of sheer terror, however, but out of an overwhelming sense of happiness. For once, this world didn't seem like a place where you shoved along as more shit piled into your life, but it became something beautiful and rewarding. Somehow, I reunited with my first and ever only friend, and that's all I cared for. The shift in my mood and attitude was unbelievable. Even my parents were astonished. I ignored the fact that my best friend looked like he crawled right out of his grave. I mean, I knew I saw him, and I knew he looked in terrible condition, but I didn't care. I never realized how much I missed and cared for him until he returned back into my life. From that point on, I began contacting the ghost more often. He started visiting me in the night several times a week instead of once every weekend. We both talked, and the longer this happened, the more it seemed as if he were really Ricardo. The way he acted and everything he said, it just seemed like it fitted Ricardo's personality. I couldn't fucking believe it. I never saw him in his physical form ever again, however. Every time we grouped up, he was always invisible. I couldn't ever touch or see him like before when we were kids in preschool, but I was able to feel him. I think that was what made him special to me. It didn't matter that we would never be able to play like before. The warm and tender presence he offered was enough to satisfy me. I remember one night when we were together, I broke down in front of him. I just released all my frustration and sorrow into my tears, and I couldn't stop crying. But it was a weird mix of happiness and sadness. For one thing, getting Ricardo back was something I appreciated every day. I don't know what purpose it served, but I never took my friend for granted from that point on. But at the same time, I faced the horrors of my school and social life. Nobody liked me, and I faced bullies every time I entered that damn building. I just couldn't associate myself well with those other kids. I saw nothing in common with everyone else, but every time I attempted to speak to one of them, they glared at me in disgust and dissatisfaction. The hate on their faces was just so damn obvious. I did everything wrong in that school, and for that reason everyone called me a failure and a mistake. And I kept on thinking that if Ricardo was with me, he could have been the person who I could have depended on for kindness. I wish those other kids died instead of my own best friend. Why did Ricardo die? Why did my family and I always have to endure the grief of death, while everyone else remained untouched and by the Reaper's menacing hands? It wasn't my fault that I couldn't get along with those other damn kids. So much had happened to me that I felt the need to isolate myself, right when I wanted to crawl out of my shell and become one with my school. They rejected me and treated me like shit. The best thing about Ricardo's ghost was that he understood. That night, as I drowned in my own tears, he wrapped me around in a therapeutic aura, and suddenly everything felt better. My deepest sorrows washed away and was replaced with an ocean of tranquility. All of my muscles eased up, and the sting of my eyes mitigated, and my head felt relaxed. He kept me locked around this comfortable aura, even as the first rays of morning light slipped through my open curtains. This startled me. Ricardo had never stayed up this late with me, and I knew he felt adverse towards any type of light. I tried wiggling away from this presence and told him to leave now before anything bad happened to him. But he kept me secured and whispered in my ear that everything was going to be all right. Even when I wanted him to leave. My greatest fear was losing. I can't fucking read. Even then I wanted him to leave. My greatest fear was losing Ricardo again. But he told me to trust him, and that trust is the true foundation of any stable relationship. Ricardo said that true love is giving someone the key to your destruction, and trusting them not to abuse you with that sacred knowledge. So I listened and followed what he said. For the first time, I trusted someone outside of my family. And when dawn rose, I saw how Ricardo remained the same. I knew then and there that I didn't need anyone else in my life. As long as I had Ricardo, my one and only true best friend, I could survive in this world. That's why when he abandoned me the moment I entered high school, I almost killed myself. It never made sense to me. He just left without a hint of where he would be. I told Ricardo everything, from my darkest secrets to how I truly felt about this world, and when he departed with my trust within his grasp, he disappeared, and when he left, Ricardo took a part of me with him. I felt so disconnected with myself. We raised each other together. Throughout my whole life as a young child, growing up into a teenager, he had been there for me every step of the way. Every bully I fought, every girl that denied my love, every person that refused to be my friend, Ricardo was there to witness it all. I knew the consequence I would face if Ricardo and I tried stabilizing our friendship in this world. Nobody would believe me that I was talking to the kid who died out of a long failure in kindergarten. People would just see me as a goddamn weirdo, and to be honest, I wouldn't blame them. I mean, it was pretty fucking weird. Sometimes I needed to pause from my distorted reality and really take in the fact that the person I loved the most was a goddamn ghost. It felt natural to me, but I knew that from an outside perspective it must be the craziest shit ever. But I thought it would be worth it, separating myself from everyone else. I'd come to like the fact that I was unique, that I had something, or better yet someone, that no one else had. This helped rebuild my confidence and made me a more assertive person when I entered middle school. I still kept to myself, but no longer felt inferior among my classmates. In fact, I settled into this hubris personality that I found everyone to be pieces of shit and didn't deserve my goddamn companionship. The only people who mattered to me was my family and Ricardo. Everyone else could rot in hell for all I care. Well, I'm going to have to make a part 3, but thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.